Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
Welcome to Launch Code, everybody. Today, I've got a special co-host with me, Mr. Street Bike Tommy.
DJ Sleep.
DJ Sleep. His new nickname. Be sure to hashtag that on his Instagram.
DJ Sleep.
Because Tommy's breakout DJ career
I've never done it before.
was Tuesday at our live Drinkin' Bros show. And he fell asleep in the DJ
Well,
booth.
you said that I was
tired.
Yeah, he said that I should start at 7, and I got there at 7 to start. And he said, "No, we're gonna do our podcast first." And I was, all right. I was a little, was at the bar
You were prepping.
and I prepped
You're
too
getting
much.
loose.
Just have a drink or two to bridge the
I
gap.
prepped too much, and the traveling and not sleeping, it catches up with you with the
You got
booze.
it. All right. Well, joining us today is a special guest, someone I've known for well over a decade, Mr. Shane Terry. And Shane is going to be talking to us about the marijuana industry in Nevada and the other states. Like, I would like to hear about, all the things that are going on with this nationwide.
Different regs.
Yes.
Yep.
Legislations. What am I using words correctly?
I think so.
They're close.
I feel like Shane's such a cool name too. Like, because I read that book.
What the one that was just called Shane?
No, it was like the cowboy book where Shane was like the main character and like
What is he talking about?
died.
He was like,
right
yeah,
after
I
the-
started reading a book, then it was called Shane, then I fell asleep.
Pretty rad. I enjoyed it. I don't know how to end it because I fell asleep. But sleep.
So yeah, how'd you get involved in this? Where did it start?
So I had a pretty long military career, kind of honing a unique skill set, and I was in for about 14 years, and I decided I want to do something different. And, why not, after an accumulation of what I considered to be, unique career progression, to burn all those bridges and jump into the cannabis space. So I was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base in 2014 when Nevada first decided that they were going to issue business licenses for medical marijuana. And I was already looking to do something more on the entrepreneurial side. And, obviously being in the military, like, we weren't big, weed consumers or cannabis consumers, technically the word we like to try and use in the industry. But, it was like there was something pretty powerful about the movement that was going on, both politically, socially. And I felt like, it was the prime time for people from different backgrounds to get involved. So I jumped ship pretty quickly. I think I had like the shortest out processing time of anybody in the military. I remember this, like, I went in to out process and, they're like, ooh, there's a glitch in the paperwork. You're actually supposed to be out of here in 3 days, but don't worry, we'll fix it. Of course we won't, make you leave for another 3 months. And I'm like, hold that. I'm like, I'll make it. And so in 72 hours, I got to go to my commander, telling him, giving up my command spot to go sell weed, and that was that.
Cannabis.
Were you on the 05 list?
No, I was not. I was a flight commander at weapons school, so Air Force version of Top Gun.
Awesome. When did you go through weapons school?
Went through, let's see, when you and I met was in 06 in Iraq. Stationed in Italy there, then got accepted to weapons school after that. So I showed up in Vegas in 2009. Went through weapons school, did a short stint in operational test, and then I came back. Was asked to come back to weapons school as an instructor, and that's
awesome.
That's where
Such
I
an
finished.
achievement. It really is.
There was such a high potential for me if I didn't blow it. Pun intended, I guess.
But really, I mean, is that if you don't see yourself in that world anymore? I mean, yeah, you go from here to be a squadron commander, and you're not flying as much anymore. Like, is that really the future you want it?
That was
To be a wing, to group, to wing, to.
It wasn't for me. I mean, I was super grateful for the experience that I had. I love flying, love like the brotherhood aspect, and I've seen a lot of people that stay a little long and get burned out, and I wanted to go with leave with good memories and it was kind of probably at the upper echelon of where I felt I was going to progress, and it was just time to reinvent myself.
You mastered it. Graduating weapons school and then coming back as an instructor. I mean, there's no boss level after that.
That's pretty rad.
You beat the boss. The game was over.
You became the boss.
Yeah. Now it's time to go try something else.
Yeah. And this is definitely something else.
So how did it start? What were the first, after you get out, what were the first things that you had to do?
Yeah, so, in most of these new cannabis states, there's a competitive application period where they open up the applications for, say, a couple weeks, and everybody scrambles. And there's like shotgun marriages of partnerships, and you're trying to put your team together, form your business plan, apply for the licenses. So here in Nevada, everybody saw like the 43 million tourists that come through here and figured it was going to be a pretty lucrative state. So there was 550 applicants for 55 dispensary licenses at the time. And we put together a team as 2 doctors, myself, an attorney that I'd met. And we hustled. I mean, it was nonstop, grind and work for, 3, 4, actually probably about 6 months to submit an application that was about 10,000 pages long.
Wow.
Cost a lot of money to get involved. So a lot of states have pretty high barriers to entry. But we were lucky enough to win 2 dispensaries, 2 grows, and 2 production. So one of the more successful companies coming out of the application phase.
So you pulled 6 licenses out of that.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Vegas was almost like a who's who of business and politics that were applying. I mean, you had sitting court judges that were applying for, like Supreme Court judges that were applying for marijuana licenses. The casino owners initially wanted to get in, but then were told that they couldn't because it was a conflict. But, our group was, we're not like self-made millionaires, where we didn't have political influence. We weren't big, powerful, business types. So everybody asked, how did you guys come out of nowhere to be successful? And, I think we really focus on the community. I met with every single politician. I felt my military background was something that they could relate to, and it opened some doors. And you can have a different conversation about, why somebody like me was involved in cannabis. So it was certainly competitive. We did well. And, after that, I ended up becoming the president of the Nevada Dispensary Association, which is the largest trade organization here in Nevada. It's kind of been off to the races since.
That is awesome. Now, for me, I know, probably one of the things that you guys aim to in this industry is getting rid of the stigma.
Absolutely.
And personally, I always, anybody that has strong opinions against it, I always point the fact out, who were the people in 1921 that decided one was okay and one wasn't? And you're just following suit was a decision that was made almost 100 years ago, and there was really no basis behind it. Because if you look back to all the anti-cannabis campaigns in the late 20s and early 30s, you had doctors just making things up and demonizing it for what reason?
Well, if you look back, I mean, there's certainly more of the conspiracy theories on how we ended up to where we were, up to about a decade ago. And back in the early days of America, hemp was really picking up, and hemp competes with cotton. So a lot of people will say that it was the cotton lobbyists and the cotton industry that felt threatened, that wanted to get, hemp and marijuana classified as being illegal. And then obviously over the decades, pharmaceutical industry has really dominated. And I think that's something that we're finally as a country starting to acknowledge is just the opiate crisis. And, people say what you want about marijuana, but statistics will show that, in states where marijuana is legal, opiate-related deaths go down about 30%. So that was something that I remember, literally, this is kind of how my entrance into cannabis went, was I was taxiing out on the runway, about to take off here at Nellis Air Force Base, and I got a text from a doctor friend of mine. He was like, "Hey, you want to start a cannabis business with me?" And I laughed. I'm like, "No, it's just a bunch of hippies using a fake, medical pretense to get high." And then right after that, I did a little bit of research. I realized that my social stigmas were probably inaccurate. And once I learned more about the business, certainly are there people that are going to abuse the program that don't really need it and are getting access? Yes, that's going to happen with any drug. But what I found is like how many people will swear that cannabis helped them through their most challenging times of chemotherapy with cancer, helped their depression, helped their pain. So it was really eye-opening to me how many true patients, rely on this as a medicine. I think that's something that every state's pretty conservative when it first opened. Everybody's worried about like, are people going to be driving high? Are people going to get addicted? Are children going to get into it? And then the reality is like, they warm up, like nothing bad happens. The world didn't come tumbling down.
But and we don't realize like alcohol is 40 times worse.
Totally.
Like we have a police officer here. Would you rather deal with a guy that's super high or a guy that's drunk and getting violent? Because have you ever been swung on by a dude that's high?
No. Honestly, just
Or is he just chilled out like, I'm sorry.
I've dealt with guys on PCP, which is the worst because that's like trying to fight Superman, and then dealing with people on crack, and that's fun too. But drunks are by far more common and worse, and anyone who's high on
present company included.
DJ sleep. People who are using marijuana, they're just if
cooperative,
chill.
I'm hungry.
Real chill, compliant. All right, yeah, I smell weed. Okay, where you going? Taco Bell. Sounds good to me, man. Have a good night. Grab me a Mexi Melt.
Mexi Melt.
And then that's it. It's like, I know a lot. Some of the opinions are forged in the, the crime that the black market, and the street brings with this. But still, if we would just wipe the slate clean and go national with the reg, and give us, 3 years, 4 years to adjust to it. That's where we're going.
Well, you're right. It's like people are concerned about the street crime. So guess what? Marijuana is not going away. It's been in existence for, hundreds and thousands of years. So if we implement programs that regulate it and tax it, we can control it. And I think, the whole gateway drug mentality is pretty interesting because everybody says that marijuana is a gateway drug. Marijuana is statistically, scientifically, proven to not be a gateway drug. What is a gateway drug is when you're forced to go buy something on the street and you go to your marijuana dealer and they're like, hey, by the way, I also have this and I also have this. That provides access to other drugs. So, I think ultimately I love where it's going with the legalization efforts. We're always going to have different arguments on, should we legalize it, should we not? And really it kind of comes down to, and this was the backbone of our campaign to go recreational, or what we call adult use here in Nevada, was not does it have medical benefits, it doesn't get into political. It's simple. Is marijuana safer than alcohol? If the answer is yes, then why are we not embracing it?
Just from a basic chemical composition, we chose a chemical that you have to create over something that
exists.
You just grow.
Yep.
So let's go into like the grow part of this. Walk us through how that works, some of the things that you faced early on, and then how it's going now.
I think on the grow aspect, the most challenging side is, a lot of your legacy growers, like people that have been doing this for decades, on the black or gray market. There are people that are growing in basements, really, for the most part, really small operations. Certainly there's gray market operations that have existed in California that are larger scale, but the biggest challenge is when, growers that, you might have 4 lights, a couple plants at your house, you can take care of it really, really well, but then you try and do it on a commercial scale where take whatever you were doing and multiply it by 100, you can no longer just sit in front of every single plant and watch it grow. So the importance of bringing in a strong business background and treating it like it's manufacturing or commercial agriculture, everything from cost savings to labor efficiencies, it just gets exponentially more complicated. And that means a lot of the smaller growers have trouble adapting to that system. So I think that's what we're seeing now is this is big business. It costs $10 million in a lot of these places to get a sizable grow operation up. That means you've got to put together a business plan that's investable, shows not only growth, but ROI to your investors. You got to keep books. You got to treat it like a legitimate business. And not only that, it's even more complicated because we don't have access to banking. We don't have a lot of the same resources that other businesses would normally have. So it's the transparency aspect, is challenging because a lot of people are like, well, what goes on in there? Even investors, like what goes on inside this operation? And if I can't look at a bank account and seeing all the cash flow, how do I know there's no diversion? How do I know it's being run properly? So, I think the biggest challenge is just scale, of commercialization and how do you run a business? And there's different aspects. You can't just be a good grower. You've got to be a good
What are your
businessman.
guys' like growth cycles? Like what's a turnaround time from planting babies to a harvest and then resetting?
Yeah, about it depends on what specific strain you're growing, but just like you said, from a business aspect, the more harvest per year you get, the better. So you try and set up a facility where your product flows through different stages.
Cycle.
If you're looking at, roughly, if I wanted to start a business, by the time I planted my first seed to actually making a sale, you're probably looking at 6 months, conservatively. And that means you got to float salaries, you got to float costs, paying rent, high electric bills. That's what I'm saying. Like it can be expensive to get across that finish line.
Yeah. And how long have you guys had this going?
In my current business, we've been doing it since July. So we made our first sale in June, right before Nevada started adult use sales. But this is unfortunately my second venture in the industry. The first one, we had some challenges. Picked the wrong partners, normal startup challenges. I left that company, kind of wanted a blank slate, and started something new that was more intentional, more of the culture, like the passion, the purpose that we were looking for. So super excited about where we're at now. We're small, it's manageable growth, but there's a good pathway, and we're getting bigger.
What kind of marketing constraints do you guys have? What are you not allowed to do? What are you allowed to do?
Good question. So everything varies like city to city. So what I can get away with and say, the west side of Las Vegas, I might not be able to do on the east side of the valley, Henderson, different jurisdictions. So a lot of the concerns about marketing are who's going to see it. So we will have to prove in a lot of cases that the majority of your audience is 21 and up, if it's a adult use recreational product. There's limited advertising you can do on billboards. Certainly anything federally regulated like, TV, FCC radio, and all that stuff is restricted. And then really, you want to be professional, clean in appearance. You don't want it to be appealing to children. So it does get, pretty restrictive. Things like social media, we've got limited resources that we can use. If I go on Facebook and I try and post menus of what I'm selling and prices, and it looks like I'm actually trying to make a sale on Facebook, they'll shut me down. So I can build up a following of like tens of thousands of people on my Facebook page just to have that ripped away from you overnight. So it's got to be very calculated and purposeful and professional to be able to do it right.
Yeah, I see this as very challenging. Similar to the gun world.
Yeah.
But, this is a little bit rougher.
Yep.
and less dangerous. Doesn't make sense.
So what has become effective for you guys? What marketing avenues wise?
For this company, I think this is maybe not specific to cannabis, but more so marketing overall. Is like, it's when social media first started, it was all about getting like likes and impressions and followers, but people were buying that stuff, and like now, I think to really create an experience, like engage your consumers, that like don't just sell a product, like sell an idea, sell a passion. Like, why am I doing this? Why do I want you to be a part of this? What does my brand represent? So that's something that I think we're very focused on, is trying to put some soul behind the products, like have a connection outside of just a transaction. So we try and focus on experiential spaces.
Well, I can see that now. And here's where I'll follow you as a customer, like in general, because even like this day now, you go into Best Buy, there's no more sales experts anymore. These guys don't know shit about what they stand in front of all day. You know, back in the day when if I got a job at Best Buy and they put me in the home theater section, I would obsess over home theaters,
That's
and
your
I'd learn
passion. You
everything
know
about them.
everything, yeah.
And anybody that walked in my area would be like, oh, "Tell me what you're looking for, and I'll
JT,
tell you."
the home theater guy.
And that's where I think you guys can jump in now, because this new millennial kind of group of people don't care about being experts anymore, and everybody is using Amazon and Amazon Prime. Be the experts. That's what I would want if I walked into a cannabis shop. I don't know shit about it, but tell me like everything, and get excited about it.
Exactly. And I think like cannabis is great for this, but it doesn't just stop there. It's like, I watched this TED Talks. It's one of my favorite TED Talks by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. And he goes through like all these different companies and shows like, why do people buy Apple products? Are they the best technology? No, like people buy the innovation. They buy what Apple believes in. They want to be a part of that. And I think cannabis represents more than just a product. There's a social movement behind it. So why are we not leveraging that and embracing the entire experience? And your experience with cannabis might be significantly different than mine and the next person's, but we're all part of a culture. I mean, it's a cultural shift that we're going through, and one that I think you had the hippie movement, and I'm not saying that this is anywhere on that level, but I think this is going to be one of the largest social movements that I'm going to be a part of in our lifetime. And that's what makes me interested in it.
With a possible victory too.
Oh, yeah.
That's in eyesight right now.
Yep, absolutely.
We'll see. I mean, how many states approved recreational use this year for 2018?
I want to say we're up to like 7 or 8 total. But you're right. I mean, everybody was watching Colorado when they first approved recreational. Like, what's going to happen? And like I said before, bad things didn't happen. What did happen was funding for schools, tax dollars are generated,
they got
tourism.
Just a crazy amount of money for schools.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say, I know I'm going to misquote this, so I'll just shut up about it. But anyways, there's a significant
hundreds
amount
of millions
of tax dollars were generated.
Oh.
So.
And so now, when does it go on the ballot again for other states? Like, is there going to be a time this year, like where a few others are going to start?
Some states can do it legislatively, so outside of a voter initiative. And I think now that a lot of people are just watching and waiting. What's going to happen with Colorado and some of these early states. And now, like, if you're a governor or politician or something, and you see those tax dollars that are flying, and you see the decrease in opiates, you see the benefits that it can have.
I mean, California has to be waiting because they're broke.
How much money in cannabis was generated in California over the last, since Prop 215 in 1996? How much money has been made in cannabis that the government hasn't gotten a dime from because it's unregulated?
Yeah.
And now they're going to start funneling those tax dollars. That's powerful. That changes economies.
Do you have any police friends that are in a legal state? I'd just like to, if you hear from any of them what they think about it since it's been legalized.
I do have a friend here who is a lieutenant with Vegas Metro. I went to school with her. We haven't really spoke about it. I might see her tomorrow, so
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Follow-up interview.
Yeah.
And
what the police side of things thinks about it, or
again,
what they're dealing with
I'm in Maryland, and we just got approved for medical. So my look at it, is go for it. I mean, if it's going to help people, and it just helped my friend's dad. I mean, unfortunately, he wound up passing, but he was using CBDs. He was riddled with cancer. A retired sergeant major in the Army, and guy was just a warrior. And the only thing that really made him comfortable was CBDs. And my friend would come in from Colorado, and or he'd ship it over, and just make his dad more comfortable. And his dad, like I said, unfortunately passed, but he was more comfortable. So right there, and then again, this is my own personal look, not my agencies or anything like that, but our vets with PTSD, it's helping them out. So if you're gonna put it to good use and help people out with it, I'm all for it. Yeah, there's going to be people that are going to abuse it and try and sell it and all that stuff, and it'll catch up to them. But it's And medical, legal, those are your two key terms right there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think I'll touch on two of those points. Is like the feedback that I've been getting in my interactions with law enforcement in states that have legalized is like, one, I think it's a huge shift, right? Because if you're on a narcotics task force and your existence in the last 10, 20 years has been like prosecuting marijuana raids and all this, and now all of a sudden overnight you're like, all right, it's illegal. You're not focused on that. I think it can be challenging for people to shift that perception after what they've seen. But I think a lot of it, a lot of law enforcement have told me whether they support it or not, well, that's now the new regulation, so we're going to move on to something different. But most importantly, it allows people to spend more time on the hard drugs and the crime that actually has like more detrimental, effects. So, I mean, I certainly don't know the ins and outs of this, but you would as law enforcement. If you pick up, if you have to arrest somebody for having a dime bag of weed, like how long does that keep you off the streets processing paperwork where you could be doing something?
And who really did we just start a criminal record for that second and third order effects later down the road? You have a 16, 17-year-old kid that eventually has 3-4 counts of getting caught with cannabis, but now we're going to pay for him for the next 30 years of his life.
in Maryland, I think it was October of 2015, they decriminalized marijuana up to 10 grams. So you could have your dime bag of weed, you could have your blunt, you could possess it. You can't smoke it in public. And when it first passed, it was really funny because, again, we could still use the scent of marijuana as probable cause to search a car, okay? Because if there is more than 10 grams in there, that's now a criminal offense. So we're still going to act on that. If there's not, it's a civil violation. It's like underage kid, under 18,
minor in possession.
Yeah, buying cigarettes. So, it did change a lot, and yeah, you gotta go with the times. Like, we can't go after that much anymore, and I was never that into it anyway, But again, it did lead to bigger things, and that's where, when they started doing these raids with manufacturing, distribution, and all that stuff, it did lead to other things. Especially in my area, a lot of PCP, a lot of crack, a lot of cocaine, so pills and all that. But now that's pretty much been taken away from us. So you just gotta work smarter. That's it.
The second thing I want to touch on is you commented about, veteran use or PTSD and everything. And that's something that I think is an extremely important aspect for me. We're veterans. Probably a lot of people listening to this are veterans. And, the alarming thing is like 21 veterans a day commit suicide. Like, that's a true statistic. Like, that's fucked up in our world if we're not paying attention to that. And medical marijuana has shown that it does, not in all cases, right? But like, there is a possible therapeutic benefit to people suffering through PTSD to get away from prescriptions, get away from opiates, and marijuana might help that. So that in itself is something that is a passion of mine to educate. What's kind of screwed up because it's still federally illegal is up until recently, the VA wasn't allowed to talk about marijuana therapy with people that needed it, even if they recognized that they weren't officially able to say anything. Now that's starting to change, but most VA doctors still won't volunteer that conversation. Yeah. So you also have a lot of veterans that know that this could be an effective treatment, but are afraid of getting a medical card because you're going to go into a registry and they think incorrectly, but it's out there that they're going to lose their VA benefits and they don't want to touch it. So, this is something that most people don't ever think about, but a recreational marijuana market has some significant medical benefits. So if I'm a veteran and I know that marijuana helps me, but I'm afraid of being in that registry, now all of a sudden in a recreational state, I can go and purchase the medicine I need because it's the same exact product. I can purchase the medicine that I need to treat myself without worrying about losing my benefits.
Exactly. No, that's awesome. So where can they find you?
Right here in your living room.
Yeah.
Legally?
What's your guys' store called? You know, if you come to Vegas, here's the one to visit.
Yeah, I'd say, let's see here. We launched our first products were in Nuwu. So it's if you're downtown Fremont Street, that's like, or downtown Vegas, that's right up there. The one closest to the Strip. Medizin is right across. It's Medizin Planet 13, the same billboards that you'll see. We just ended up in Apothecary Shop, which is right across from Flamingo. Exhale, which is pretty close there as well. Zenleaf, I think, Top Notch. So we're starting, we're limited production right now, so we can't be everywhere. But, the biggest challenges of marijuana businesses is it gets isolated from state to state because we can't transport things across state lines. When we go to our next state, we've got to reinvent ourselves and our process, our facilities and everything in that state as well. But, we're hoping to grow. And our products are a bunch of different brands. Roots is the one that's out there right now. But I really believe that cannabis has a potential to be more of a daily health and wellness, supplement. And I love the concept of microdosing, which means you don't have to get bombed out of your mind. You can take small trace amounts of THC that maybe you barely feel. But everybody knows THC, but there's so many different cannabinoids and terpenes that provide medicinal benefits and wellness benefits that are just not very apparent because we never got to get those studies on the black market.
That's like where I have a lot of questions because I've never been really into, smoking weed or anything. It's just never been my thing. But like, I keep hearing people talking about like everything that it's good for, and I just haven't encountered like CBD. I don't know what a CBD is. I don't like. I have I deal with chronic pain like daily. Like I've put my body through the ringer, and people keep talking about like the health benefits with managing pain, and I'd like to look into that, but I have no knowledge on where to start, who to talk to, like, strands. I have no clue. Like to me, weed, cannabis is, weed's weed. So, I mean, I don't know what to look into. Like where does the medicine start and the high stop? You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
I don't have the knowledge to differentiate from, the THC to CBD to, it's something that I'd like to know more about. But like, where can I look into that knowledge?
Yeah, good question. And I'm kind of like you as a consumer. Like, there are some people that wake up in the morning and they'll take a bong rip yeah. and they'll go on about their day like nothing happens. Like, you'd fall asleep or what?
Dude, they would kick me into the next gear and I'd want to go get wasted.
Yeah, so that's not me. So for me, I consume maybe before I go to bed because it puts me down, when I'm, running all day and kind of amped up. But, there's such a wide variety of different ways that you can consume it. I think as far as finding research on it, some of the best programs that are out there is Leafly is very common. That's LEFLY.com. It's a website. But they have some educational materials. There's others for, even if you just Google it, like what is CBD? Project CBD is another really great organization. But to kind of explain that and what's out there is everybody knows what THC is. Well, there's over 180 different cannabinoids that have been identified, and THC is only one of them. THC is psychoactive. CBD is not psychoactive, meaning if I took a product that it was high in CBD, it's not going to get me high. So as we start doing more research, we find out that CBD, along with other cannabinoids, are great for anti-inflammatory, anti-pain.
That would be awesome.
I mean, you can do it everything from topicals to, edibles, to even smoking CBD, oils and whatnot, sublingual sprays. So I think that's the fascinating thing is this grows and the industry matures and more research is done on it. We're going to start discovering that, in addition to CBD might have just been the most famous one to recognize first, but we're going to find that it's not just THC and CBD, but there's all these different cannabinoids that have specific effects. And that, in addition to cannabinoids or terpenes, it's like when you have different teas and dietary supplements and, lemonine from lemons, different smells, things that are present in other plants that have medicinal benefits, those are all present in cannabis as well. So finding the right ratios that work for you, there are a lot of research out there that you can find. But it's pretty impressive. And for me, I toned down the psychoactive use. I just know that that's not compatible with me working during the day, or being on my game, or being able to communicate. So
yeah, for me, like I also like, it's kind of, I've had a bad taste in my mouth because the last couple times that I've actually smoked, like I get super like anxiety, like panic attacky. I don't know if that's paranoia, but like it's just like my heart kicks into like another gear, and I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack.
Yep.
And I'm just like, I'm stuck, and I'm high, and I'm stuck, and I'm high, and I'm like.
But yeah, right. The pigeon coop. Yeah, but it's like
it's really put a bad taste in my mouth, and everybody's like, "Oh, you were smoking the wrong way." How the hell do I know it's
And that's the interesting thing is now is like things are becoming regulated and testing's required. You're required to put on the package how many milligrams of THC are in each unit that you're going to consume. So you really can, with precision, start working up to the dose that works for you. Find the right strain that works for you, because you're right. Some people will talk about sativas tend to be, in general, they tend to be more uplifting, and that can lead to anxiety, where indicas might put you down a little bit, make you more mellow.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, right?
That's what I need. I need to just veg. That's my speed. What was the word you used for that one? What's the
Indica.
Indica.
There you go.
I'm going to look into that.
Well, perfect. Hey, thank you guys for joining us today. This was a lot of very interesting, useful information, and you're going to go educate yourself.
I'm going to go educate myself and manage my pain and anxiety.
For Shane Terry, Street Bike Tommy, and JT, this
What?
is Launch Code.